So paperwork, the fastest way, like any other kind of clutter, is to start to dig into it. And again, like any other kind of clutter, you sit down amongst that paperwork and you put a notebook or a journal next to you. And as you sit down at that paperwork and you imagine starting to sort it, first tap into your resistance and see what's going on. What is the voice telling you that's trying to convince you to do something else? How is it trying to distract you? So start writing down, like, I don't want to do this. This is going to take forever. I don't even know what to do with the paperwork anymore. Do I need to keep this? Don't I? That kind of stuff. Whatever chatter comes up for you, throw it down on the page. Get it up and out of your body. Throw it down. Like I say, when you give your resistance space to be heard, it quiets down. If you ignore it, then it feels the need to chatter even louder. And that's when it gets really stubborn and persistent with distracting you. So just write it down, find out what it's trying to say. Cindy says, I have every bank statement since I was 16, like 30 plus years. Yeah, Cindy, so think about what is the intention behind saving all those bank statements? What do you tell yourself is the reason why you need to keep those? And then on the other part of the equation, what comes up for you when I say, I want you to start shredding them? Pay attention, write that down. So when you start to dig into the paperwork clutter and the stuff is coming up for you, let's hear what it has to say. If there's not much stirring right when you sit down, although there probably is, but let's say that there's not, give yourself permission to do an easy peasy sort to start. So you have your stack of paperwork, or you just take one stack, or whatever you want, however much you want to take. You're going to sort it into two piles. You're going to sort it into keep and toss. Those are your two piles. That's all you need to worry about at this point. Keep and toss. And by toss, you know all, I mean recycle or shred. No trash. So keep or toss. So now you've got this toss pile, right? You've got this pile that you have decided easily that it's time for this stuff to go. Get rid of it right away. Shred it, recycle it. In all of 30 minutes, you have made exceptional progress on sorting your paperwork. Like, how amazing does that feel? It doesn't have to be completely done to feel the effects and the benefits of the problem. You just need to get started. Success is in the action, not the outcome. You hear me say that all the time. So just get started with keep and toss. Toss being recycle. We don't do landfills here. You just start with that. So then you start to write down what comes up for you. Like Cindy writes here that anxiety comes up for her at the idea of getting rid of those bank statements. So Cindy, if you feel comfortable, say a little bit more about the anxiety that you feel, because I guarantee a lot of people watching can relate to this. And what we're going to talk about is absolutely going to help them. So what is the anxiety around starting to recycle, shred, get rid of some of those old bank statements? What do you fear you would really be recycling or shredding? Cheryl asks, are you supposed to address any of the thoughts you write down? That's a great question, Cheryl. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. What I mean by that is when you dump down what your resistance is saying on the page, it does two things. It gets it up and out of your body so you can be more clear-minded, and you can let it feel like it has a voice because you truly are giving it a voice. Then on the other side of things, you can review what you've written down, because that's going to be incredible wisdom that your resistance is providing to you, so you can know what it needs to feel safe. So yes, you can review the stuff that you've written down, and it's like information gathering. You are learning what feels so scary to your resistance, then you can address it. But sometimes we just need to give our resistance voice, and when we let it say whatever it wants to say, and then we can just go, it's okay, it's all good, we got this. It can just be that kind of reassurance. It doesn't even need to be specific to the individual thoughts that it has, because again, you don't want to appear as though you're extinguishing fires left and right, because when we try to fix a fear, feelings aren't meant to be fixed, they're meant to be felt. So when your resistance shares some feelings by like you dump it out on the page, if you were to go through each of those things that you wrote down and try to address each and every one, it almost sends the message of, let me fix all of this for you because I don't want to hear what you have to say. Do you know what I mean? Like, think about, sometimes in life when you just want to vent, you don't want answers, you don't want solutions, you don't want help, you just want someone to vent to. Like, sometimes that's okay. But when you go to vent to someone, maybe you vent to someone and they tend to like, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? What about this? What about that? And you just want to shake them and say, I just want to vent. I don't want a solution or an answer or a suggestion. Just let me vent. It's that same kind of feeling. If you're trying to fix everything your resistance is complaining about, it can feel like you're shutting her down. And she's just going to need to get louder and more squawky and throw a bigger temper tantrum until you just listen. So Cindy, who feels anxiety around getting rid of old bank statements, says that she feels she needs to keep it for some reason. It identifies me. That's powerful stuff, Cindy. Like, you are digging in here. This is perfect. So I would want you to explore this in your journal. Who am I with the bank statements? Because you say that they're part of your identity. What part of your identity do those bank statements represent? And what part of and this will probably be the same answer, so what part of your identity would you feel like you were missing if those bank statements were no longer around? If you were to recycle them, what part of you would you really be recycling? So look at that. The bank statements are just a symbol of something more. It's just a representation. So we don't want to give our power to the stuff, but I am all about not like shoving away the stuff or just like getting rid of it without honoring it enough to explore. So I would want you to explore a little bit about what part of your identity is wrapped up in those bank statements. Leah Marie says, I feel if I throw away something, I'm going to need it at some point. Super common again. I call it the I might need this someday syndrome. People say this all the time to me. And yeah, Kathy's saying the same. I always feel I will get rid of something I might need. I've been the filing cabinet for the family. Okay, great. So really think about, so we're going to go back to the paperwork sort because this plays right into it, right? So you're going to have keep, recycle, your 2 piles of paperwork. You recycle the recycle pile. Now you have the keep pile. The keep pile, we're going to have you sort into 3 piles. You're going to do file, follow up, figure out. Melissa, can you write that in the comments? Yep. File, follow up, figure out. You're going to sort your keep pile into those 3 piles. Again, it's another great baby step because you're not yet asking yourself to commit to any final step. You're taking this sort step by step with the intention being to learn what is this paperwork trying to say to you? What is it representing in your life about what's working and what's not? So file, follow up, figure out. And you just follow it in the obvious ways, right? So you go through the keep pile and you sort it into 3 piles. This is all set. I just need to file it over here. The ball's in my court. I need to take action. This is a follow up. This, I'm not really sure what to do with this. Hey, Diane, I'm not really sure what to do with this. I've got to figure it out. How long do I need to keep it? Do I need to call someone about it? Is it already underway? Like, if there's something that you just don't know where it fits yet or what it means, then it goes in the figure out pile. So file, follow up, figure out. As you're going through that sort and you come against those pages, and this actually might come in the keep recycle sort, when you come across those pages of, I don't think that I need this, but I might need it someday, then stop and inquire with that question. What is the piece of paper? Is it possible that you might need it someday? And like really inquire about that. If I needed this someday, what might I need it for? It's amazing how that question one step further can really clarify things for you. Just by asking, if I did need this again in the future, what would it be for? Why would I need it? That answer can help you to go, oh, you know what? Like, for instance, when Cindy talks about the bank statement, so she has her, I mean, it's different for her because she feels like her identity is wrapped up in it, but let's imagine that she had her bank statement from when she was 20 years old and thought, I don't really want to get rid of this, I might need it someday, and she were to take that next step and say, okay, if I needed this someday, what would that be for? And try to come up with a situation or a scenario where you would ever need a bank statement from when you were 20. You might have one, but like answer that next question. Most times you'll find that you can't really come up with a scenario or a situation where you might need that. And then if you're still hesitant to get rid of that, I might need this someday paper, you want to dig a little bit deeper, like Cindy was so quick to do here in the comments section when she talked about, I feel like my identity's wrapped up in it, so I get anxious at the idea of getting rid of it. So you just dig a little bit deeper, like what does this paper or this document represent to me? What does it mean for me in my life? So the other thing you can do with the I might need this someday syndrome, again, super common, is to also ask yourself, if I did get rid of this and I did need it again someday, is there a way that I could get it back? Is it somewhere online, for instance? Is it does someone else have a copy of it in a file somewhere? Is there another document that I could get in place of it? Like, find out, is it replaceable? So those are the two questions. Is it replaceable? And can I really think of a scenario or a situation in the future where I would ever need this? So these are they sound like obvious questions, right? But these are the steps that we don't go to. We start to go through the paperwork, and then we're like, I don't know if I need this someday. Forget it. And we just throw in the towel, right? We give up because we came across that one page of not knowing if we'd need it in the future. So then the whole task is just shot. So asking yourself those questions can help you dig in a little bit deeper. So now you've got the file, follow up, figure out piles. So let's say you go to the file pile and you're going to go start to file some of this stuff. If there's resistance or a block to doing that, again, you just stop and ask yourself, like, what is stopping me from filing these papers? Do I not have a system set up? Do I not have file folders? Is it a logistical systems thing that's stopping you from filing it? If you have all the tools that you need, file folders, a drawer to put them in, etc. If you have all the tools you need to file those pages, but you're still resisting filing them, we want to investigate why. Is it it's going to take too much time thing? Then you break it down. You just do one Pomodoro round at a time. Remember, like those 1 25-minute round at a time. Doing the resistance journaling, but also just being willing to dig deeper about what does this act represent. Is there, I spoke to a woman a while back who, filing paperwork for her felt like a representation of permanence, and she wasn't ready to feel permanent where she was at that time, where she physically was at that time, and so she didn't realize that that's why she wasn't filing her paperwork. She just thought she was, scattered, disorganized, lazy. No, creating that file folder meant more to her than just being lazy. It was like, wait a minute, this represents really committing to this location, and I don't know that I'm ready to commit to it. That's why her filing was backing up, right? I mean, it's powerful stuff when you dig a little bit deeper. Julie says, I find it helpful to consider, I'm looking over here to read comments. I find it helpful to consider who else might need this. If it's not important to anyone else, am I keeping it in perspective, or is it just a loss aversion? Helps to find out why it's important to me. Yeah, really good point, Julie. Like, why is this so important to me? And like Kathy said earlier, she feels like she's the filing cabinet for the family. It sounds like, Kathy, you might like keep all the important documents, or so that might be more of a boundary thing, Kathy. Like, so you have all this paperwork. Are you in charge of keeping and storing paperwork for others that they could be in charge of themselves? Right? So, or are you happy with being the filing cabinet for the family? It might be a job you enjoy, like you might like to be in control of something like that. But I'm going to guess no, because it doesn't sound like, just based on what you wrote here, it doesn't sound like something you necessarily enjoy. If it is something you enjoy, then it could just be a filing system situation. But my sense is you might be handling more for other people than is really necessary. And when we have loose boundaries with people, we do them as much a disservice as we do ourselves. So it's, I think about, I had one woman at one of my book talks mention how she is like the family historian. And so she archives family photographs, important documents, genealogy information, that kind of stuff, like really like significant family history stuff. And one thing that really stressed her out as she gets older is this fear that all of her work will be for naught. That someday when she's gone, no one in the family is going to maintain her impeccable archiving system. And so she tends to hang on to a lot more than she really needs to, out of fear that it's all going to go away someday. And so while she thinks that that's about a systems issue, how do I manage my family history archiving in a more systematic way? What I said to her was the first thing I would want you to do is have a conversation with your children about their willingness to carry on this legacy of this family archiving. She had never asked them. She feared and assumes that no one's going to be interested and it's just going to all get thrown away after she's gone. I said, well, you can't know until you find out. So you could actually talk to your children and find out that one of them is really into that and is totally happy to take on the job. And you can start transitioning it to him or her now, so you can be there to train and make sure it's done well or done right. So, she brings up the organizational struggles with her family documents and photos and whatnot. And it's not about, because it is organized. Because when I talk to her about it, it's not a systems issue. She's got it down. She's afraid that someone won't continue this, that someone just won't be interested. So it's worth asking. So that's the other thing, like Julie had said, it's helpful to consider who else might need this, who else might want it, who else might do it, that kind of stuff. Asking further questions about your paperwork can lead to really cool discoveries that you really wouldn't think. I know it sounds ridiculous, right? Because it's just paperwork. But think about what can be in your paperwork clutter. It might be bank statements. It might be unpaid bills. It might be old medical invoices that are paid but remind you of a difficult health situation that you went through or a family member went through. It could be divorce papers, adoption papers, insurance policies. Like, think about kids' artwork. That's another big one I hear from parents. Like, how do I feel bad getting rid of my kids' artwork? And I totally get it. But you can have fun with some of your kids' artwork. You don't have to keep every single scribble that they make. But it's not about the artwork. It's about your feelings of guilt and how you fear it might make your children feel if you don't keep their artwork. So you get to be in charge of creating an environment and an atmosphere in your home that shows them that your love for them is not only like their artwork. You keeping their artwork isn't your currency for love. That you love them whether the artwork's there or not. So whatever's in that stack of paperwork is why it can sometimes feel so loaded. And this is why paperwork, I think, is such a common form of clutter, and one that I love because I have heard examples and stories, and I have experienced it myself, of how intimidated we can feel by our paperwork. Paperwork can make you feel dumb. It can make you feel powerless. It can make you feel scared. When you have things in the paperwork that need tending to or need your attention, and maybe it's things that you're not really sure what to do with, I remember when I was younger, I used to keep like all my social security statements when they came in the mail. I didn't really know what they were, but I thought this looks important and official and stuff. I guess I should keep it. I didn't know any better until I then learned. I'm like, why am I keep like I have a file of social security statements? Like, what does this even mean? And when I looked closer at it, I'm like, this is going to change over time depending on how long I work and how much I make. So I thought, I don't need to keep this, right? Like, I don't need proof that, when I was 24, I should have gotten $200 a month in Social Security. So I got rid of it. Like when we learn more, it's okay if there's stuff in your paperwork that you don't know what to do with. There are enough resources out there that you can ask someone. So think about what fear comes up for you when you think about diving into your paperwork clutter, and what beliefs are they validating, right? Like that woman I talked about in my book, and I've mentioned before that, she had files and files and files of articles and blog posts and notes because she felt like she wasn't the smart one in the family, and that stuff supplemented her intelligence. And so once we worked on the blocking belief that she is brilliant without that stuff, her intelligence is not in those filing cabinets. Once we worked on flipping that belief to a more empowering one, then she was like, oh my God, I'm so sick of this paperwork, get it out of here. So thinking about what it is you mean. So I'm going to scroll back and just hit on some of the questions here. Yeah. So Diane, question. I have ADHD and I find cleaning my bedroom, then I'll put something in the bathroom and I'll go clean my bathroom and get it half done and go back in my bedroom. It's driving me nuts. Oh, Diane, honey, you're singing my song, girl. Melissa will tell you. Yes, that is so me. I can be working in one room and then, just like you're saying, go to another room to just grab something, and I end up focusing on that room. It is maddening. And I don't really know, I'm trying to think how I manage that. I can't say that I've come up with a successful method, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, I think that aside from ADHD, ADD, we're just bombarded with so much information all the time that, yeah, it's easy to feel scattered, right? So I guess I would say, what has helped me is self-talk. This is a perfect example. So earlier tonight, I went upstairs and I was switching the laundry. I put my phone on the dresser in the bedroom, switched the laundry, and as I'm switching the laundry, in my mind I'm going, phone in bedroom, because I know I would come back downstairs and I'd be like, where the hell is my phone? And I would be scrambling looking for it. So it's sometimes I just have to put that in my mind so my mind doesn't get distracted. So I'm switching the laundry, but literally as I'm switching it, I'm going phone in bedroom, phone in bedroom, phone in bedroom. So just as I'm about to go downstairs, I'm like, phone in bedroom. And I turn around and I get the phone. I know it sounds funny and it sounds silly, but it is maddening, Diane. I totally hear you. It can drive me crazy as well. So, that's a silly little technique that I use that works when I remember to use it. And also if I'm like in the example you used, that if I'm cleaning one room and I head into another to get something and I start cleaning that room, it is a lot of self-talk that I'm like, nope, Carrie, back to the bedroom. That's what you're focusing on. So it is, yeah, like Julie's saying, it is a lot of self-talk of just keeping my mind clear. The other thing that I find really helps me, and you've all heard me talk about this before, is the mind dump. When you are someone who is easily distracted and has trouble staying on task, Diane, like you're saying, I would want you to stop what you're doing and do a mind dump first. Empty your brain out, because we can't hold a ton in our minds. Our brain, remember, is a computer. It's not a container. So if you find that you're having trouble staying on task, hey, Shelley, if you're having trouble staying on task, or if you have trouble focusing on the task at hand, just stop and take 10 minutes. Get a pen and paper, 10 minutes, dump everything down onto the page. Just empty your brain. Free up the disk space, right? When we load down our brain, which is a computer with too many tasks, to-dos, thoughts, it slows down the processing speed just like a computer does with too many files on the hard drive. So if you find that because there are those days where I am just all over the place. I cannot stay on task or focus to save my life, and that's when I need to stop and just empty my brain. I always feel like it's a waste of time, but I stop and I just write it all down, and I'm like, oh, I immediately feel better, right? So I would suggest that as well. Marianne, I do the same thing with things from my grown son's childhood things. They don't want this memorabilia, but I can't bear to get rid of it. I have 4 plastic bins full. I have narrowed it down quite a bit already. Marianne, it's fantastic that you've narrowed it down. I think that's really great. Yes, it's interesting. I hear this a lot at my book talks, and I think it's really true. And you see a lot of articles these days about it, how the generational shift has happened, that those in the generation who were given things from their parents and kept it are now up against a generation of children who don't have an interest in, what is the word? Inheriting. Thanks, Melissa, that's it. In inheriting the stuff. And so I joke around partially and say, my next book is going to be If You Love Me, Don't Leave Me Your Crap. But really, it's a whole generation that just doesn't want things, right? There's, I think partially it's because it's not the same quality of items. Like, think way back when families would pass down china or furniture for generations because it's really good quality stuff. And nowadays, unfortunately, things are made to be so disposable that kids don't have the same connection to stuff because it's so easy to replace. Hey, Laura. It's so easy to replace. And again, I say that that's unfortunate because I know for me, like, when I have like a nice piece of furniture that's made really well, or I find a piece, or I find something that is made really well, I really appreciate it. So it's interesting. It's almost like we're coming full circle. It's like the throwaway generation is now, well, let me say this. So my generation, so I am a Gen Xer, my generation falls between quality and ease of access. So the generation after me is about easily replaceable stuff. So I don't think they have the same appreciation for quality items. I know I sound like an old lady, like these kids nowadays don't appreciate something that's well made. But really, I think that I think it is just a generational thing. So yeah, all right, so everyone wants the book, If You Love Me, Don't Leave Me Your Crap. Okay, it'll start as a blog post and we'll see how it goes from there. I'll get the pre-orders going for that book for you all. But really, so I think like you're saying, Marianne, like your son's childhood things, he's not interested in. You can certainly ask him, unless he's already told you. But yeah, so it's for you to process. If it means you grieving the fact that he is older now, that he's grown, and so you need to have a moment with those items before you release them. Sometimes it's easier to release things when we know they're going to a good home or someone else is going to get good use out of it. But if it's like, the outfit he came home from the hospital in, let's say, or things like that you can't reuse, I mean, you could certainly repurpose, make a pillow, or, I'm not good. I'm not a flea market flipper, so I'm the wrong person to ask about this. But there are ways that you could maybe repurpose some of his childhood things into something that he would love today. But I would say the first step for you, Miriam, would be to kind of process your feelings around what it's like to let go of those items. So Julie, trust issues come up with me, especially with insurance papers. Yeah, and I think that's not a bad thing, Julie. I think it's good for us to be cautious, which is why I love my handy dandy shredder. Anything that I'm not going to keep that has any kind of sensitive information on it, and I'm talking even my name and or address, goes through the shredder. Anything else like insurance papers, I mean, again, if you don't need to keep it, if you need to keep it, well, first find out if you need to keep it. If you find out you need to keep it, file it appropriately. And if you don't, shred it. I mean, household shredders are really inexpensive these days. Disposable generation, right? But yeah, you can get it and just shred it. Annie, when you lose a spouse who is so organized, and here I am with ADD. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, the kind of good news is, Mama, that's my mom, Annie, everybody, that Dad was so organized, so he left you with some organized files, I think. And when you struggle with ADD, it's just a different, I mean, as you know, it's just a different way of thinking. It's a different way of organizing. It's a different way of processing things. So what is it about some of the things that he organized that you now struggle with? Like, is it that you feel like you've messed up some of his systems because of how you do things? It really is, I mean, again, like I always say with clutter, right? It's about self-love and forgiveness and compassion and gentle kindness. So if you just have a different way of processing things, organizing things, doesn't mean that you're bad or wrong. It's just a different way of doing it. So find a system that works for you and how your brain works. You'll be much less apt to beat yourself up, that's for sure. Kathy, in my subconscious, I think I can be a hero when I have papers that will answer a need for a family member, thus making my unhealthy codependent role fulfilled. Yes, I am currently working on it in a recovery group. That's powerful insight, Kathy. Really powerful insight. So you know that part of having those papers that can answer a need for a family defines your worth partially for yourself, right? So you can be the hero for that family member. And yes, I mean, is it a codependent trait? Sure, coming from one codependent to another. But it really is looking at working on the codependency and also working on building up your self-worth. So it's not defined by what you can provide to people, that you are lovable just for who you are. And if you can help out people now and then, that's fantastic. But the love isn't conditional. Their love for you is not based on what you can provide for them. So to wrap your head around that, you want to work on loving yourself more, like getting so sure within yourself that you know that you're lovable, regardless of how much you provide to people. So yeah, but that's what I mean, Kathy, right? Like, this is why this work I think is so powerful, because it's not about the paperwork. Like, right there, for you, it's about, I can be the hero and have what people need. Yeah, that's really good stuff. Thanks for sharing. Marianne, my paperwork scares me. It's usually bills that I can't pay. I wait until I can't stand it anymore, and then I just throw it all away and start a new pile. Yeah, so again, powerful. So your paperwork scares you. So your paperwork is taking power away from you. So even if it's bills that you can't pay, I promise you that there's a phone call you can make to the creditor and just explain your situation, let's say. Even if they say, sorry, ma'am, there's nothing we can do, the sheer act of making the phone call or sending an email inquiry if a phone call feels too scary, the sheer act of doing that shows that scared part of you that you will go to bat for her, that she's not alone in this, that when your paperwork scares you, it's because you're expecting your younger self to run the show. And managing paperwork and bills is not a kid's job. It's a grown woman's job. So take whatever step you can. Like, that's when I'll say to myself, I got this, kiddo. It's all good. You don't have to worry about this. And I let that younger, scared part of me take a back seat, because it's not her job to handle bills. So just think of one small action you could take today, Marianne, tomorrow, to look at that pile of paperwork, or make one phone call or one email inquiry about one unpaid bill and ask about some sort of support. Is there a plan that they could put you on? Would they be willing to reduce the balance if you could pay a large amount at once, let's say, or just inquire something like via email or phone, and it's going to be a powerful act of self-love. So Julie does the self-talk stuff too. Yeah, so I tell you, the self-talk stuff, if people could hear in my head, they'd think I was nuts, but I do in my head be like, it's all right, kiddo, you got this, one step at a time. You can do this. You totally got this. I give myself pep talks all the time. Yeah. Your voice is so soothing. Oh, thank you. Isn't that nice to hear? Because I hate my voice. You know how y'all hate your own voice? Like, I always joke around that I sound like a man with a cold. So thank you. Your voice is so soothing, and you give great step-by-step guidance on how to break it down into realistic goals. I just separated 2 small piles of magazines and junk mail while watching your video. I love that. I love, if you guys can be sorting paperwork right now while we're talking, I think that's fantastic. I plan to review your videos again as a source of immediate support. Great feedback. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, sort away. Annie, when you lose a spouse who was very organized, kept everything in order. Okay, I find it hard to be able to keep records in order as he did. I have ADHD, so I have no patience and very frustrated. Yeah, thanks for saying more, Mom, because that helps. Yeah, then you want to create a system of your own. It is nothing more challenging than trying to fit into someone else's shoes. So just because Dad organized stuff in a certain way, that he organized it in a system that worked for the way he thinks. You're not him. You're a different person. So give yourself permission to come up with a system that is completely yours. Melissa and I, very different systems. Very different. She is a Virgo perfectionist. I am a crazy right-brain Taurus. For her, like, I can just throw everything in my purse and then I'll sort it out later. Or like, here's something that drives her crazy. So this is a perfect example, Mom. If we are running out to do errands and we make a list, I will make a list. I've gotten better at this, only because it wasn't working for me. But I would just make a list of everything. And on that list would be groceries, blended in with returns I need to do, blended in with like, just really like unrelated things. And it would drive her nuts. What also would drive her nuts is like, if I was writing on a piece of paper and I ran out of space and I'd start writing up the side. She's laughing back there. Drives her crazy. Her system is different than mine. My brain does not work in the organized fashion that hers does. Now, society tells us that us more creative thinkers are wrong, but I disagree. Studies will show time and time again that it's the creative thinkers that are the most brilliant. That's all I'm saying, Mama. So we are creative. We think of different ways to do things. You don't have to fit into these compartments and these boxes that someone else created if they're not a fit for you. It would literally be like trying to fit into someone else's clothes. So I say give yourself permission to do your own system, one that works for you. Otherwise, you will always be swimming upstream. So we are creative, brilliant people. All right. Okay, everyone wants the book. So Lisa says you can scan and keep documents. That way, if you need them, you have them. Brilliant way to go paperless, right? There's lots of like small desktop scanners. You can scan things with your smartphone these days. So that's a brilliant idea. So you can scan these documents and keep them on an external hard drive. So you don't have to worry about like if your computer hard drive crashes. So scanning is a brilliant idea. I think that's really smart, Lisa. Thanks. That's certainly something we're going to move toward as we get into the tiny house. I can't have an office full of paperwork, so I will be scanning documents. Like I have folders for all my clients. I will be scanning that stuff and keeping it in a secured external hard drive that only I have access to. We already do paperless billing. So I love the idea of scanning. Self-talk really helps. Oh, thanks for the compliments on my voice, guys. Yeah, me too, Sarah. Sarah says she likes electronic records except for a couple things. Yeah, there's certain things that just feel better having them as hard copies, but for the most part, electronic is just fine, especially if it's, it's backed up, it's safe, it's secure, it's off to the side. So, do you see how much there is in paperwork? I know. Holy moly. We've run over. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. Because, yes, there's a lot with paperwork. So here's what I want you to do. Here's my challenge for you. I would suggest doing it as soon as we hang up because you're going to feel the most motivated, but I also appreciate the fact that it's 8:30 Eastern time here and it's different times wherever you are. But if you can take one chunk of time right now, I would say one Pomodoro round, and just take one stack of paperwork and separate, keep, recycle. just start there and have that pen and paper handy to write down what comes up for you. You will feel amazing. Even do 10 minutes before bed, because then you go to bed on a high, right? Hey, Joe, you get this great high, like throw 10 minutes, just sort some stuff. Hey, Charlene, 10 minutes to just sort some stuff. And then you can wrap up your night with like feeling like you made some progress. Those 10 minutes, you can reclaim your power so much in 10 little minutes. So thanks, Joe. I think you're pretty amazing too. So that's what I want you guys to do. Go do just 10 minutes of a paperwork sort. I don't care if you get through 5 pages, something to reclaim your power from that stuff, because it's not about the paper. So hope you found this helpful. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and good for you for taking this time out to get some support.